now you caused.
Starting to share too. Okay, so hi everyone. This is Wednesday, the 25th of September, the first time that we do the CAPV office hours at this time. Before I start, we're subject to the code of conduct, so please be nice to each other, and yeah, feel free to add yourself to the attendees list and discussion points to the agenda. Yeah, okay, so let's maybe kick it off.
Yeah, I added a pointer. This may be one for you because you did the work.
Yep. Yesterday we did CAPV releases. We did patch releases for 1.9, 1.10, and 1.11 due to the move of the registry for especially CSI. So the latest versions and using cluster cuddle with this latest version should result in working templates, which include references to the correct registry with images instead of referring the old registry, which doesn't exist anymore. And the pods should come up then. Yeah, I think there's nothing other big things in that releases, but yeah, feel free to take a look at our change logs.
I have a quick question on this one.
Yep.
If you know, do you know if the CSI project basically fixed their own image promotion process? So
Yep.
Okay, so we should be good from now on.
For now, we should be good. They're now using the official Kubernetes community registry with registry.k2.io. And also, yeah, for using that, they had to use image promotion. Otherwise, you don't get images in there. So, yep.
Yeah, they worked with the Katsid on fixing all of this up. I don't know what the latest was on syncing the old images, but yeah, it's a CSI problem there. So they should know. But I know that they were working on restoring more and more of the old images. Yeah.
Okay. Do we have somewhere? I don't know. Could be in this document or somewhere in the release version or in a release note. Somewhere an advice to user, hey, you have to upgrade because older CSI image does not work.
We don't have that pointer yet, but we could add it, of course.
Yeah, let me add a note in the agenda, and then we can figure it out if we want to add something to latest release note. Let's say, hey, you have to upgrade.
Yeah, I mean, why not?
Thank you.
Okay, good. Next one.
Yeah, Stefan, go ahead.
Good. Yeah, I want to bring up essentially that we should bump CAPV main to use CAPV main essentially. Why? Basically, we're going to bump CAPV eventually to use core CAPV anyway ahead of the release. We also already did it for the entire last patch release because we always needed some stuff that only made it in core CAPV and wanted to use the code. So I think there's like no downside to it. Also, basically, it means that we integrate very early between CAPV and CAPV. And I think the only reason to not do it would be if we say, hey, we want to do another minor release that is based on the old CAPV minor version. But we never did that. We have no plans to do it. So I think it's fine. The big upside is definitely just whenever we do something in core CAPV, and we're all very active in core CAPV, we can just do the same stuff in CAPV. And not, oh yeah, there's a list somewhere. We have to do this like in 2 months. Hopefully we still remember. Don't forget it. So it's just, in my opinion, just a lot easier to pick up everything immediately instead of trying to write it down somewhere and then do it later. Also, we know very early if it actually works. And basically, what's also a nice aspect is I think that whatever we do in core CAPV, we can expand basically test coverage to one real infra provider in CAPV to also already get the same. Because usually the stuff that you have in core CAPV hits infra providers, real infra providers, not just CAPV, relatively late.
Yep, that sounds a bit good.
Yeah. Maybe that's another one for your list, Christian, by the way. That's okay.
No, before I have a question. So first of all, I'm okay. It already happened in the last cycle that we started bumping to copy commits very early, and so on main, and it did not create any issue. Probably we also did this in the release before when we implemented all the VCSIM testing stuff. So it is already a sort of practice, and it gives us a lot of benefit in picking up stuff early, testing early. I'm just asking, how do we plan to do this? I don't know, weekly bump, automation, or by need. I'm okay also going by need because we know what happened in CAPI.
Yeah, what I would do is basically, I would definitely do it whenever we think like, hey, I mean, we have to do it once initially, and that's like the bigger change, because then we have to pick up the new controller runtime version. We have to change our test setup slightly to basically, I think what we should do is we should bump go mod to a certain commit, and then we should bump our test configuration to use nightly images of the corresponding controller. So end-to-end tests are also using the right controller, not just that is not just a Go dependency bump. So once you have that initially, the further bumps will be lower effort, in my opinion, because it's just bumping out things, and whatever we want to ingest basically leads to some potential changes. Okay, so we have to do it initially. Then I would say we do it whenever we have a concrete thing in core CAPI that we want to pick up. If once in a while we say, hey, we didn't do this for a month, let's maybe do another bump, then I would just say, yeah, totally fine to do it more often. I probably wouldn't try to do like a fixed cadence or something. In the past, it worked. I mean, the last time we did this, basically, we ended up bumping every week or two, just very naturally, because we always had stuff that we wanted to use.
Yeah, I think if it gets too much work, we could have a GitHub action which does it once a week or something like that, which bumps everything the right way.
Yeah, but I mean, that only actually works if the bump is very mechanical.
I think
that's
that
the only way it works.
If we go down the path of automation, I think that the automation should open a PR like the Panda button. Then it is up to humans.
Do the thing that always happens, like bumping the Go module and bumping to the latest set of nightly manifests and images, and open a PR, and then we should see that okay, it's okay or it's not, and we have to fix things or not.
Yeah, I'm also just not sure if it's worth investing automation at this point, because I'm not sure how mechanical those changes will be. But if someone has the time,
good enough for a later stage.
No, in general, I have no problem with having it automated, of course. Just a question of investment.
I agree. Let's go for some time doing it manually, and then we figure it out.
One similar thing that might be a lot more worth it. I mean, both might be worth it. Could be Go bumps, to be honest. You've been doing those manually for a while, and they are really very, very mechanical. I mean, I'm talking about Go patch versions specifically.
That's a good one.
Maybe I'll open a help wanted issue for that, just that we have it on the map for automating Go bumps in both repositories, CAPI and CAPI.
Yeah, just wanted to say that's also a very good one for core CAPI and other providers.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense.
Okay. So with that, I think we wrap this point. And I totally forgot to add an introduction round at the very beginning. Hi, Neil. Let's kick off your point.
Hi, guys. I've been at the CAPI meeting pretty much all year, and I just started attending those when I joined the Splat team in Red Hat. So I don't know if you've seen me around with Richard Vanderpool and a few of the others, but that's kind of where I'm coming from. I've seen most of your faces there, so it kind of feels like home. I'm just usually kind of a fly on the wall listening to see what's going on versus actually talking. So I think this is the first time I've talked. So thank you. So one of the things we are working on in OpenShift is we have kind of a request for an enhancement to support adding additional disks to our machines, to our VMs, to support things such as a dedicated disk for etcd, dedicated disk for swap, or for container runtime, or for image storage. And what we have is like kind of two separate installation mechanisms. We got the IPI, which is the installer provision installation or infrastructure, and we've got the UPI, which is the user provided. And what we're trying to do is allow our automated install to allow creating these additional disks so that they can set up, whether it's the masters, whether it's workers, all to be targeting their needs, right? And so what I've been prototyping is I've got what we call our machine API operator, defining machines, kicking things off, and adding these disks that aren't present in the template to the machine, so that way we can then mount them to wherever we need to mount them in the OS and configure services accordingly. And one of the things that came up is trying to make sure that our machine API operator doesn't drift too much from CAPI, since we are trying to migrate off of that in the future into kind of the CAPV and CAPI scenarios. In fact, our installer already today is using CAPI to spin up the masters and get things moving forward, right? And so one of the gaps we noticed is that there's no way to add these additional disks. Now, that being said, it does look like CAPV supports changing the size of additional disks that are present in a template, and through the config of the machine definition, you can say change the size. And what I'm wanting to see is, have we ever thought about enhancing that, or ever looked at it in the past to, if we want to add a disk that's not present in the template, go ahead and creating, the GoVC logic to go ahead and just create those disks and add them to a SCSI controller or whatever like that. And if so, I've already started looking at porting some of that logic in. Is this something that we think would be useful in CAPV?
Very good question. I know it's possible with the VM operator world, so not the standard GoVMomi world in CAPV. Personally, I would have to take a look into the CR, how all that plugs in currently.
Maybe one disclaimer, you're talking here only to people who have been working on CAPV for definitely less than a year. and we didn't change much. So that means we don't necessarily have, like, let's say, historical knowledge about what was discussed in the past, or also not necessarily like, everything that might be in the API already or not.
Okay.
So I mean, in general, so did I get it correctly that today, via vSphere machine template, vSphere machine is just not possible to add disks to a VM? Or
So
was it a
right
spec you
now,
want to add them later?
So right now, at least looking at CAPV from my initial kind of run through here, is that we do have a field called additional disks GB that you can set that can help configure additional disks as far as changing their size. Yep, right there. And we use that, but it has to be already present in the template. So we would have to have, the admins create new templates with these disks already attached, and all they can do is just change the size of them if they need to adjust them accordingly. And that is one approach that we're discussing as kind of a stopgap to say, yeah, go ahead, you can just recreate your own template, upload it, and change your machine defs to point to that template, and then create a machine config that will go and set up the services as you need to. But we're trying to help automate that a little bit. So there may be other stuff that's special to us, that's like, what is that disk used for? So we can auto mount it for etcd and things like that. But all it does today is just change that size of an existing disk. That's not the primary OS disk.
Yeah, one thing that confused me was you were saying template, and of course you meant VM template and
yes,
vSphere machine template.
Yeah, inside the actual OVA, you have to have them mounted there. Okay. And that's how it gets kind of put into the system today. And that is one way we can go about it. We can still have the admins generate that and then change their configs to point to that for each of the virtual machines from the CAPV, or even from the OpenShift side, right? We've also got a machine CRD definition that's pretty close, but not quite exactly the same as CAPV. So
what's a bit weird to it is let's say you have a template where you add the disk for etcd, for example. This template doesn't really make sense to use it for worker nodes later on because you don't
Right.
need that etcd disk. So
Yep. And you can have multiple templates, and that's the thing I'm trying to avoid, right? We don't want the admin to have to know that there's like these 5 templates that they're using across their cluster. And ideally, it would be nice just to define your machine set and say, for this one, I'd like to add this additional disk based on my root template, the OVA template.
Yeah, I would like, let me say, two sides of your question, which is, by the way, interesting. One is how to handle volumes from the machine down below, so from the VM, from the virtual machine down to the sphere. And I echo Stefan comments, Christian comment. We have to look into it. The other is how to handle the UX and in cluster API. So I think that the story is the following. So you have your machine controller, your machine API, which basically take care of single machine or machine set, if I remember well what they explained to me. In cluster API, we can do, so whenever you are going to opt in a full cluster API, I think the best way to do this is to use cluster class and manage a topology. So basically the idea is that you write a cluster class take care of all the complexity that sits in templates, and you basically expose to the user a few variables. So and the user, by setting these variables, basically then this variable can be translated in whatever you want in templates. So this allows basically cluster class author to hide all the cluster API complexity behind the few very user-driven information, and then all the cluster API take care of annoying stuff like creating a new template, rotating a template, stuff like that. So
yeah, but I think we're probably talking about slightly different things, right? Most of the times when you are saying template, we didn't mean copy templates. We're talking about the VM template thing in vSphere.
templates.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So
and cluster class can manage the VM templates for Sphere. So
no, wait. VM templates in vSphere, cluster class cannot manage objects that are only in vCenter. Let me explain. So we have multiple forms of templates, right? We have if you look at cluster API series, we have vSphere machine, we have vSphere machine template. When I'm going to the vCenter API and I'm trying to create a VM, what I usually do is I take a VM template in vCenter and clone that. And that's what Neil was talking about, that VM template in vCenter.
Basically an OVA, which
the OVA.
Yeah, based on OVA.
Yes.
So I think, so I think what Neil was saying, hey, the way that this currently has to be done is you literally have to go to vCenter. You have to create different versions of your OVA or whatever that is there with different disks in there. You have to do this all in vCenter. And then you can take whatever your OVA you have in vCenter, and you can create a corresponding vSphere machine or vSphere machine template that then says, oh, this that you already have should be 5 gigabytes. This one should be 10 gigabytes. But you cannot define today in the CAPV API which disks you want and how big they should be. You can only decide how big they should be, but they already have to be in your OVA before.
Okay, got it. So I was focusing on the other side. So how to make this at the end. So there are two angles. Some is how things happen in the sphere, and the other angle is how to expose this to the user, and I make this nice to the user. I was talking about the first part, and then of course in this case it is pretty complex. Maybe CAPV can add volumes on the flight, maybe, but I suspect that this will require also some changes at OS volume, at OS level. I don't know, mounting a volume, stuff like that. So
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
but it must be definitely possible. I don't know, Neil, how much you know about CAPV, but basically we have like two major different modes that CAPV can work. One is the mode that you're using, and the other one is that some of our VMware or Broadcom products are using. And that's basically that in that mode, CAPV is not talking to vCenter directly. We use another operator, and that operator then talks to the vCenter API, and that operator is called VM operator. And what we already know is that in that mode where we're going through the VM operator, we have volumes. So this half of CAPV has the capability. So what is safe to assume is that there's definitely a way to do this. Of course, with also your half of CAPV. The question is, I guess, how would this exactly be done on the vCenter API level? To create the VMs correctly based on whatever this configuration someone puts in there. And what I also don't know is, once we create a VM with a certain disk configuration, do you basically need the corresponding configuration? I don't know if you're using the kubeadm config or the kubeadm bootstrap controller, but there you basically could define like cloud init stuff. I don't know if you need the corresponding mount configuration that also matches what you configured on your disk level in the VM. But yeah, I mean, there should be definitely ways today that it works, just not with CAPV going on me, but whatever works there also has to work here, I guess. It's just a question how exactly would be my current assumption. I definitely don't know enough about the vCenter APIs. I mean, you probably know a lot more than me actually about that.
Yeah, so
but I just don't know how what has to be done on vCenter API level to add disks to a VM template.
It could be as simple as, okay, like when you're in vCenter, you could click or add it to your VM and you could add a disk. It could be as simple as doing the same, but through the API, of course. But Stefan was right. Additionally, there's either something required in the cloud init, or if you use ignition level, which then mounts disk, which could be either cloud init or ignition native configuration, like some volumes thing you can fill out. Or the other way would be having a script doing the same. Yeah. But
No,
yeah,
that's kind of what we're doing today. So with GoVC and talking directly to vCenter, we can take the template during the clone process, and you can send disk or device add commands, or I think it's device create commands. And as part of that, you can say create the disk, because we know we need to. So it's actually two commands in one in order to add it to the new VM that's being cloned from that vSphere template. And so most of that I've got working solid. We're breaking this into two parts. So there's the creating the disk and making it present on the machine. And then step two is going to be, like you said, initting it to be into the right location that we need it for whatever service is going to use it. And that part, I do agree, it's going to either be through some ignition configs, or we may be doing it through our machine config operator that knows how to lay down those service files into the right places after it's been bootstrapped and it comes up. And I think we're going to be okay from that perspective. So I wanted to at least have CAPV focus on step one, which is just at least getting that disk there so it can be consumed by someone, whether it's, like I said, by us or by another operator, because there's other things out there that our customers use. There's a local storage operator that can go and search each VM and say, hey, let's mount this location always to this place, and it can take care of it for us. So if we can at least get step one done, I think that's a huge help, and we can put it in both our installer and into our live clusters on those both sides of that fence, right?
Yeah, I think it definitely makes sense to restrict CAPV to only do the disk stuff, because basically, yeah. I mean, the bootstrap provider in our world, where you use if you use the kubeadm bootstrap provider, I mean, that's its job, right? Or like you're saying, if you have some other stuff that does all that setup, like your operator.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it definitely makes sense that CAPV doesn't try to also run some code on bootstrap or something.
Right.
It should basically stay in its lane there. But what is important in any case, that basically people are aware that, I don't know, Godog on the API field or something. Hey, if you're going to use this thing, you also need something else that actually makes it usable for you. Otherwise, you don't have much.
Right. It's there.
Yeah. So maybe how to wrap this. I think it would maybe definitely make sense to create an issue in CAPV to continue that, because otherwise we have talked here and forget about it, I guess.
No,
So
I'm sorry. I meant to have an issue before getting here, but I just noticed yesterday this call
that's
was
fine.
today. And so I just want to at least make it known and show you my pretty face and all that good stuff.
That's
That's
fine.
perfectly fine.
That's fine.
Then we could
That's
also
fine.
help to let engage other people using the Govimomi mode too. And that also helps about API design and stuff, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, I took some note. Just the TLDR follow-up is open an issue.
Yeah, we definitely have a bunch of other people within VMware that, as Christian was pointing at, they're basically using this mode of CAPV. And I'm going to send them your way. I don't know if they have time or if they have input, but let's see.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Alrighty. I don't know. Did we have any other topics? We've been relatively quiet on CAPV side. I mean, there's not, let's say, not much moving in the last few weeks.
Okay, we can wrap up.
Oh, you found an issue. Interesting.
Yeah, I found 2 issues which go into that direction. Don't know if you could at least recycle them at the end. But yeah, maybe still makes sense to just open a new one and
1592, 1530.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you maybe also add a link to the VM operator? So just in case it's interesting to you, it might make sense to look at the VM operator in the sense of they have a CRD that's called virtual machine. I assume it should have volume somewhere, and they should have like code behind that. So they already might have like basically similar code to the one that we would want to add to CAPV itself. That takes care of adding volumes. Maybe there's some useful inspiration somewhere in that repository on how they are adding volumes to VMs.
it's too fast. Yep, sounds good.
Maybe that's one thing to mention. Just so in a lot of places, the more you look into upstream CAPV, you will probably see in a lot of places that we have code which is on one side directly in CAPV for what we call Govimobi mode. And then we have roughly the same stuff in VM operator, where we are using it indirectly in the other mode of CAPV that we call supervisor. So it's often like, oh, this thing already exists like on this side or on this side. Let's see how the other one works. Or let's add a feature which is already here also to this part so that other people can use it as well.
Excellent.
Okay.
That's it for today.
Maybe
yeah,
very quickly a little bit of content why VM operator exists. So basically, when VMware, when CAPV started, it was basically reinventing all the VM management. With VM operator, we are basically leverage on the help of all the VMware folks. They give us a primitive that we can leverage on. So looking forward, let me say, in a future yet to be designed, ideally we should leverage the primitive that vSphere offers, which are getting better instead of acting at low level with Govimomi. But yeah, this is a story yet to be written.
okay. And thanks everyone for joining. See you maybe in 2 weeks.
Yep. Bye-bye.